Welcome to today's edition of the Career and Faith Podcast. My name is Joy Scott, and I am your host, where we talk about all things faith and career to help you become more resilient. And today we are here with a very interesting guest. You're going to love this interview. Her name is Chelsea Burnett. And before I tell you what she does, Chelsea, let's play a little game with our viewers here.
Okay.
So, Chelsea, describe what you do without telling us your actual job title.
Okay. Without saying anything and giving it away, I go on the hunt for spinning air, for electricity, and chunks of ice for fun.
That's an interesting way to point out what you do, Chelsea.
Oh
So,
man, that was tough.
so I'm not going to leave them in suspense for too much longer. Chelsea, tell everyone what you do.
I am a storm chaser and a public speaker about storm chasing.
Now, everyone who's watching, I know that when a storm comes, you probably run away from a storm. You heard that right. Chelsea actually runs to the storm. Is it safe to say that's like your Zen place?
It definitely is. Very safe to say so.
Oh, this is going to be so much fun. Okay. So, what drew you to being a storm chaser?
So my mom says it started as early as 2 years old because growing up in Oklahoma, there was always severe weather, there's always storms. So when I was about 2 years old, the sound of thunder captured me. She said that every time it thundered, I'd run to the nearest door or window and try to figure out where that sound was coming from because I liked it. So it stems from there.
So, when people find out what you do for a living, what is it that they ask you the most?
The number one question I get immediately after saying that, they say, you actually do that. It's like they either misheard or they just can't believe that someone like me would be out there doing that. So that's their first reaction is, wait, you do that? And after that, it's why? like, why would you want to go out there? I say yes, very much so. I am that person. I do go out and do that. I let them know I've seen 70 tornadoes and 3 hurricanes. And when they ask why, I say, well, I enjoy weather. I love storms, but also to go into it a little bit deeper, I say, those tornado warnings that you get on your phone or you might see on TV through the weatherman, the TV meteorologist, and they said, yeah. I said, they need to get that information from somewhere. Sure, the National Weather Service can be on their computers and looking at the screen and seeing radar and can guess that there's a tornado, but they need eyes on the ground and looking and confirming what's happening on radar. And that's where storm chasers come in. So we are able to better equip people issuing these warnings to issue them faster and quicker and in more advanced time for people down the line from those storms.
Mm, mm. So everyone, when you get those notifications on your phones that go, they pop up while you're grocery shopping, there's an important reason. It's not just to let you know about the storms. There's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, Chelsea. So I've watched many of your videos on social media. And Chelsea, just watching it, you've gotten into some very I would say dangerous situations. It was just watching it at home. What is it like to be in a storm? And by the way, I just want to say, everyone, don't try this at home. We're not saying, describing this so that you can go into it. Chelsea has experience and training and the know-how. But so she's going to describe it so you don't have to experience for yourself.
Going out and chasing storms, it satisfies a natural craving for experiencing the weather. I love weather. Right now it's sunny and there is not a cloud in the sky. And that is boring to me. Like I can get tired of that after a few days. And I like the change in weather. I like witnessing the steps that it takes for storms to develop and then to intensify and then create what we know as tornadoes or lightning or hail or straight line winds. It's mesmerizing to me to watch all these things together and happen right in front of our eyes. And no two storms are the same. So each opportunity to go out and see these storms, it's like doing it all over again because they don't all end the same way. And there are their own unique challenges and things to overcome when we're out there and we're seeing this weather. So the feelings that come about are just, I'm mesmerized. I'm in awe. But there is a small tad of fear, not for myself, but for other people who are unknowingly in the path of these storms. And so to be out there and to report on it makes me feel like I'm helping get the word out and being able to better equip people to be prepared.
Mm, mm. Because I have to admit, it is very interesting from the perspective that you share on your social media, the videos, the reactions that you have that
Yeah.
I can hear. So you do a really good job of captivating us, and it's hard to turn away. It's like, oh yeah, I need to watch the next one.
Thank you.
So since this is the Career and Faith podcast, let's talk a little bit about how faith plays into what you do.
It is huge. A little bit about my background will kind of highlight where faith really comes into play here. I grew up with very limited resources, limited inspirations for becoming a storm chaser. The only true connection I had was the movie Twister that came out in 1996, and that is a movie, it's Hollywood. I never saw any real life examples of people going out and seeing the weather and making that their career without being on TV, without having some sort of public speaking, broadcasting background. And that was not an option for me, or so I thought at the time, because I grew up with a speech impediment. I have a stutter. I still do. It's not as bad as it was when I was a kid, but that is because I've gone through and experienced things that have given me the mindset to overcome it now at the age of 38. But back when I was a kid, when I was a teenager and a young adult, that inhibited my options to explore the careers of weather because I was not willing to be in front of people talking about it. So I took the path that my family saw best. Hey, go to college, get a great corporate job with good benefits, and you're set for life. And that's exactly what I did. I went out, tried to get a degree in meteorology, failed at the math, moved to Texas, got a degree in business, settled down with a nice corporate job, with a nice husband, in a nice house, with a nice mortgage, but I was still missing something. And I kept coming back to weather because living here in Texas now, it's really no different than Oklahoma in terms of weather. So it was always captivating me, always pulling me back in, but only temporary. And I didn't like that it was only temporary. It made me sad and depressed that I wasn't able to do more with that. So I went to my first storm chasing conference in Denver in 2011. I met all of these enthusiasts. I'd never sat in a room for a full weekend with people who loved weather as much as I did until then. When I came home from that, I cried for about 2 to 3 days straight because I was so sad to leave that environment and go back to my home life and my corporate job. So when my husband filed for divorce in 2014, that was a big pivotal change in my life. It was a very rough transition, but about 3 months into it, I told myself, if I'm going to have this big change now, why not go ahead and try to change everything else that I've so desperately wanted to? So I left that cushy corporate job after a couple of months of just hoping and praying that something would come along for me to be able to do that. So I jumped into a commission only position with another company. It allowed me the free time to go out and storm chase and experience my first tornado, so on and so forth. but the income wasn't there. I eventually had to switch gears and go back to corporate, but had the virtual slash in office schedule. So as I continue to storm chase, as I continue to cling on to this passion with the faith that this is what I'm supposed to do, I can say 9 years later, I am now in a position full time of storm chasing and doing public speaking to support when I'm not out storm chasing. And that was all based on trusting my instinct, having faith in that this was my calling, this is what I was supposed to do. Just being able to put trust into that finally, because I didn't have any other obstacles in the way, so to speak, it changed my life forever. And I'm really grateful that I listened to that inner voice, that I hung on to that small glimmer of faith and hope that this is what I'm supposed to do and I need to fight for it. And so here it is.
Wow. That's a beautiful journey, even with the rough patches and I'm sure for a lot of people who are watching this at home, they're thinking, I'm at this job, but there are things that I really want to do. And they're wondering how that opportunity or how the time is going to open up, become available for them to actually do the thing that they want to do. So I like the way that you approached it. You went to a conference, so you went where the people are, which I'm sure it provided a lot of insight as well as to how much experience would need to go into this, what you needed to do to really take a hold of this. And that sparked so much. Wow, Chelsea. So your first tornado, do you remember your first tornado?
Oh, absolutely. It was the day after Christmas and at night here in Dallas, Fort Worth. We had a storm system develop within the 24 hours of this happening. And a lot of us storm enthusiasts kind of started sniffing this out early in the day. We're like, ooh, I was on my way back from Oklahoma with he would have been 2.5 at the time. My son and my black lab, we had just come back from Oklahoma of visiting my parents, and we're on the highway 11, 12 o'clock in the daytime, and I get a tornado warning on my phone driving down the highway. Completely took me off guard. I was able to exit and find a rest stop with a public restroom that I dove into with my toddler and with my dog. Nothing materialized. It was just a tornado warned storm. It had the features that it never developed a tornado, but that set the stage for what was going to happen later on in that day and evening. So I arranged my son to go stay with his grandparents. I took my dog home and I met up with other storm chasers throughout the afternoon and evening. And when the storm started to develop after dark, just west of Dallas, kind of near Midlothian, I was able to branch off from everybody. I found a gas station and I just looked west at this storm that I could see on radar. And I had my position plotted with the storm. So I sat there and I watched. And as there were lightning flashes, I started to make out what I thought was a tornado. And I wasn't 100% until the power flashes started. And the power flashes illuminated the tornado as well. So I sat there and watched the progression of this tornado at this gas station, ready to go inside if I had to, but I just stood there. I recorded the whole thing. I was also talking with my boyfriend at the time about what I was seeing because he's also a storm chaser. And it was just so, I just couldn't believe it. You see people do it all the time, but then when you go out and do it, it's like, is this really happening? So it ended up being an EF2 tornado that was on the ground for about 8 miles. Now, what's more notable about that night is it's the same storm system that developed an EF4 tornado that went through the east side of Dallas. I didn't witness that because it happened shortly after the one that I saw. I was too far away, but many of my colleagues were able to chase that particular one. Again, it didn't happen in your traditional daytime, middle of Oklahoma during spring. It was the day after Christmas and at night and in a major metropolitan area. So it was just, I don't know. I still think back on it. I'm like, that really happened.
Yeah, as you were talking, I don't know if you can see, my eyes just kept getting bigger and bigger. If you're watching this video on a scale of 1 to 5, like how big did your eyes get just listening to her talk about this? Oh gosh. But you know what is awesome? What really touches my heart about that story? Your boyfriend is also a storm chaser. So their storm chaser love. I think that is so adorable. So that
I know.
is the other guy that I see in many of these videos
Yep.
that's sometimes driving. Wow.
Yes. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So as a storm chaser, what would you say has been the most rewarding experience or part of what you do?
Oh gosh. In the beginning, it was being able to get out and enjoy the weather, but the more we traveled for these storms, the more new states I was checking off and more new places I was visiting, places that I normally wouldn't go to if it wasn't for the weather. So, visiting these places, meeting new people, eating new eating new food at new restaurants, just the whole human aspect of it keeps drawing me in. And as it got later into my chase career, I started branching off and doing different things to supplement the income to be able to be a storm chaser. And one of those is being a storm chaser guide with a tornado tour company. So there is a company that is based out of here, out of North Texas, called Tornadic Expeditions. And on employment paper, I was the first female guide for this company. The owner's wife was technically the first, but I was the first paid employee to do this. And my husband does the same thing. And we both go out and drive vans and take people around the US for 5, 6, 7 to 10 days to see storms and hopefully tornadoes. Um, there was the best moment was this year in June in Wyoming. We had a father son duo from Michigan who was on their fourth year of storm chasing touring with us, and they saw their first tornado. And to be able to witness that out of somebody who had just spent 4 years and quite a bit of money to do this with us, to be able to finally see that moment happen for them and to capture it. I have pictures, I have videos. It was just such a cool thing to witness out of somebody who has the same passion for weather as you do, but it was just like a bucket list item. Since then, both the son and the father have gotten tattoos of this tornado, of the actual tornado, and they sent pictures of it to us. And it was just so cool to be like, wow, we're helping other people achieve these dreams too. So that's probably been the best moment of 2024 for me as a storm chaser, is helping someone else achieve that dream too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
thank
So,
you.
so if, I didn't know there was a such thing as a storm.
There's more crazy people out there.
Wow. But it's such a thrill because I'm sure for a lot of people, like you said, it's on their bucket list of things to do. Some people want to go to Paris, some people want to go to London, some people want to chase storms. And that, being able to get that experience with them while you're guiding them because of your experience, they're not doing it alone. So it helps to fulfill that for them. That's so awesome.
Yeah,
Chelsea, I can tell you know a lot about storms. You got to know a lot about storms.
a little bit.
So, so if you were a storm, what type of storm would you be and why?
Oh, the perfect storm scenario for me would be to be out in the middle of Kansas where it is flat and you can see for days across the horizon. There's no civilization, there's nothing in the way between me and this storm. The storm that I would be this nice, healthy, supercellular storm that has the perfect coloring at sunset, that has the perfect shape, that has the perfect dynamics to come together and create this beautiful cycle of slowly developing the wall clouds, slowly developing the funnel. Then the tornado touches down. It's in the middle of nowhere. People can sit and watch me for 30 to 45 minutes. And then I slowly make my exit and the storm dissipates and it turns into night and all is well. That would be, if I were a storm, that's what I would be for people. I don't want to be a destructive tornado that's mowing through big towns or big places or affecting people. I just want to be that storm that's out there for people to admire for simply what it is, Mother Nature at work. That would be the type of storm.
See, now when you describe that, it just sounds so peaceful and serene.
It can be, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Now you also speak, you mentioned you speak at schools as well. So what do the kids usually ask you?
They're like, they ask anywhere from, you know, what is your car like, to will we die if we're in a house that gets tossed by a tornado? The kids are so interested and intrigued by the process and by the aftermath. I think largely social media, YouTube, the news, things like that kind of plays into it. And kids truly can be either frightened by it or they can be completely obsessed with it like I am. There is no middle ground really. And my goal when doing these talks for these kids is just to reassure them that the big bad tornadoes don't happen very often. In fact, 1 out of 100 tornadoes on average is an EF4 to EF5. So I try to come in to reassure them that we live here in Texas and we do have a very active season sometimes, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a big, bad, destructive tornado. And getting to showcase how storms work through the demonstrations that I show, like tornado in a bottle or an air mass demonstration with hot and cold water to showcase hot and cold air and how it works in the atmosphere, to be able to capture their attention and to make them more curious than before the presentation is just something that's a lot of fun to do.
Wow. Whew, I bet it is very different when you're talking to the kids. I can just
It is. It is.
EF4 and EF5. What is that? What's
So
the
tornadoes are measured on the destruction that they cause. So we can't look at a tornado size and say, oh, that's an EF5, because it may not be fully true. And that is because tornadoes are measured on a scale called the Enhanced Fujita scale, or EF scale for short. And it goes from a 0 to a 5, with 0 being the smallest, weakest of tornadoes to 5 being the most destructive type of tornadoes. EF0s to EF1s, for instance, have winds that aren't normally over 100 miles per hour. So it's like driving down the highway. Like that's the wind speed that these typically emulate. EF2s to EF3s are a little bit stronger. They're upwards of 150 miles per hour. And then you have your EF4s to EF5s, which are 200 plus miles per hour per wind. So when a tornado moves through an area, when storm chasers make that report that there's a tornado in the area, the National Weather Service is able to make a note of it. And the next day, they go out to that area where that tornado was reported and they survey houses, power poles, trees, fences, other structures, anything that's still standing, they go and look at. And they look at the damage and then they compare it to what's called a DI sheet or a damage indicator sheet. And they're able to make the determination of what level or what EF rating that tornado receives. So even though a monster tornado is wide and huge, the wind field inside of it may be weak. We've witnessed big, huge tornado circulations that just had 2 or 3 smaller little tornadoes inside of it. So that's why we have to be cognizant of the information we receive on social media, because a lot of times people jump the gun and say it's worse than it is, either for the likes and shares or just out of excitement. But I try to tell people we cannot know that right away until we see what the just like.
I love that you mentioned that in these times of AI and people who have created these representations of tornadoes and storms, claiming that it is an actual storm that happened when it's not. It's really something that was created by AI. I think it's really important to make sure that people are following legitimate storm chasers like you for legitimate content.
Yes, good point.
What haven't I asked you about storm chasing and what you do that you would like to share or you think it's important for people to understand?
I think a lot of people struggle with where to even start. A lot of people, they tend to assume that they have to have a degree in meteorology to even pursue something like this. I don't have a degree in meteorology. I attempted it. But at 19 and having a full-time job, I just wasn't in the mindset to seek out additional help or tutoring for that math. I kind of just gave up and moved out of state. And I did get a degree in business, which I feel like was more helpful to the real world, to apply those practices to, the jobs that I had at the time. So it ultimately helped me kind of steer my path and have those knowledge blocks of information to be able to do what I do now. But I would suggest for people to at least seek out what's called a Skywarn Storm Spotter training class. Most National Weather Service offices across the United States, they put this type of class on typically between January and March each year to help people better understand their local weather, to understand local topography or orographic influences such as hills or plateaus or mesas or mountains that could influence their local weather that's specific to where they live. It helps them better understand to interpret and report what's going on. So if they're
Hmm.
real enthused about that kind of thing, if they really want to take part in their local reporting efforts, that's a great free way of doing it. They have those classes in person, but you can also take them online any time of the year. So I just heavily suggest somebody to Google search NWS, their nearest metropolitan area, Skywarn Storm Spotter Training. And it should pop up a calendar and they can see when those will be happening in 2025. And it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be people who want to be storm chasers. It could be simply people who just care about the local weather that happens. You don't even have to go out and leave your town to do this. You can literally make the reports from home if these storms are moving through your area. So it's a great help. Like if you get hail at your house, you can take a picture with some coins or with a ruler and you can submit that and that's your job. Like you're done. You've done your part. So it can be as little as keeping a rain gauge and just reporting how much rain you get to how much damage you receive after a tornado has moved through. So there's all different types of levels that people can do this for. It doesn't have to be just for storm chasers.
Ah, so I can take a picture of things that have happened in my neighborhood
Huh?
afterwards,
Yep.
and that can be my contribution to the weather community without me
Yes.
having to go into the storm. I love that.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. The national, in fact, the news stations will even put out a request sometimes like, hey, if you have storm damage or pictures, please submit them. And they'll showcase those. But you can also email or tag the local National Weather Service office in your social media posts. They're mainly on X and Instagram, and a lot of them do have Facebook too. So I would suggest right now to go ahead and follow those pages because you never know when those storms will happen next, and you will already have those pages liked, followed, and you can find them much easier than if you were to wait after a storm passes and then you try to locate
That's a good idea, Chelsea. Thank you.
those. You're welcome.
Now, before we end, I have to make sure that I highlight your many accolades. So, you were chosen as one of several amazing women in the 2021 Girls in STEM Inc. article for the International Women's Day in Science. You were commissioned to create custom YouTube content for area schools during COVID-19 in 2020. So, for you parents out there who were like, hey, I need help with my kid, I need this content, Chelsea probably had a hand at creating that content for them. You were awarded the NEPRIS Trailblazer Award for content creation on the platform in 2022, and you have served on the panel for the Lincoln Experience Center Mystery of a Storm discussion in 2019. So, Chelsea, where can people learn more about you? How can they connect with your content?
Sure. I have a website. It's www.beyondtheskies.net. I also have an Instagram page that's Chelsea_Beyond the Skies. And then on Facebook, it's Storm Chaser Chelsea Burnett. I'm also associated with Texas Storm Chasers on all platforms. And I'm associated with Storm Science for the public speaking side of things. And that is on Facebook.
Chelsea, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, for inspiring us, for empowering us to take that next step. And I'm going to make sure I put all of her content, the links to her social media, her website in the description. So be sure to check her out, visit her content, like, follow her. It's amazing.
I appreciate you, Joy. Thank you.